Hello, good morning. The meaning of the life is not simply to exist, to survive, but to move ahead, to go off, to achieve, and to conquer. I quote from Arnold Schwarzenegger. Hello, I'm Dr. Nandadulal Sanigrahi, an enthusiastic worshipper of the magic of the reality of the life. And now today I am going to present you a very most arted question about what's life. Let's start our journey. Now, if I ask you about the blue planet, there basically you find the two systems. One is the open system, another is closed or semi-closed system. The abiotic components of the earth, comprising of air, water, light, and a lot of other ingredients, is a part of the open systems. And here, all the times, the earth have the pleasure to enjoy the beauty of sunlight, the air, and the different other constituents. But when these constituents in general and the elements, molecules in particular, have the pleasure to remain under the semi-permeable system or partial closed system, then it makes the beauty, and that beauty is the beauty of the life. Now, basically, you know that cell, the very small test tube, the very small laboratory of the body, is the basic structural and functional unit of the life. And here, the physical evolution ultimately acts as an appetizer to have the pleasure of the beauty of the life by the number of the millions of biochemical reactions that takes place within the system. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and the different other elements, which are basically called macroelements, as they reside in a very huge amount. They join together by means of either chemical bonding or any other biophysical bondings and leads the formation of the different kind of the higher kind of molecules, starting from micro, then macromolecule, supramolecules, etc., etc. And in turns, they brings the structures of the helix of the life. Basically, it is the DNA, and it remains in a very detailed, compact structures, which is basically known as the shell. So, apart from the philosophical point of view or literal beauty, if you ask me what exactly life, I have to say that life is nothing but the journey of the millions of chemical reactions which takes place in the different forms, which is controlled by chemical reactions catalyzed by the number of other ingredients and which have the different properties of the life like respond to stimuli, like nutritions, like circulation, respiration, and stimulation, and undoubtedly the inevitable death. Now, the question comes, are the organisms basically have the single ancestry? Means are they basically origin from a fundamental basis? The answer lies in the understanding of the two important attributes. One, the most important cells, each cells, which is used for breaking industry, brewing industry, and the human life. And if you think over the reproduction of yeast and the human beings, in every cases you'll find that both the reproduction of yeast cells and human cells is controlled somehow by some means by a particular kind of controlling unit, which is basically known as the gene. And it has been experimentally proved that if one controlling unit of yeast is substituted to the human controlling unit and vice versa, the life and its reproductions remains as usual. That certainly indicates that basically, irrespective of plants, fungi, animals or human beings, they basically have been derived from a single ancestry. The second thing is the most interesting part of the life. Here you will find the pleasure of the transmission of the character. And the foundation of the biology of the transmission of the character was initiated by a monk by profession but passion as a mathematician, and he is none other than Gregor Johann Mendel. While having a lot of experiment of the pea plants, he observed that the inheritance and transmission of the characters generally follows a certain mathematical rules, and it is not beyond any kind of exceptions. It's a general rule, fundamental. So, when 1,000 million years or 1,500 million years ago, the E cells followed by in the passage of the time, very recent past the human beings have been derived. The beat of the life have been observed in the same patterns, in the same fashions, and the beauty of the genetics of the transmission of the characters has become a center of attraction to the geneticist, biologist, and the different other enthusiastic persons in this scientific domain. Then comes the evolution. Since the time of the origin of this beautiful blue planet, time has flied, and there is a flavor of evolution that takes place since the time immemorials. And then comes there is a beauty of the natural selection. Generally, if there is an urge, there is a cause and consequence of the adaptation, and mostly these adaptations is taken into account in the inner structures, in the molecular structures, and which by means of reproduction is transmitted from one generation to the subsequent generation, which was later on experimentally proved by a lot of evidences by the father of evolution. He is none other than Charles Darwin. So, if we consider the life and its definition, then there we find that a molecular characteristics are responsible, irrespective of the diversity of life, whether it is a single cell or the million cells that leads the formation of other complicated structures like tissue, organ systems, and other. But there is another way. Today we are talking about artificial intelligence. We are talking about the machine learning. Now, if I ask how the regulation of the cellular mechanisms where millions of biochemical reactions take place, who regulate it? Exactly. There is a regulatory system which is basically triggered by the informational coding molecules who basically start the biochemical reaction and stop the biochemical reactions which require for that. So for example, if I say, suppose you have taken the food and sugar level is subjected to increase, but the blood has a certain degree of the tolerance of the sugar level within its constituents, immediately the pancreas will produce a hormone which is insulin that will make a sustainable supply of the glucose within the blood, and when it becomes decreases immediately another hormone which is antagonistic insulin, glucagon is released, which again converted glycogen into glucose so as to the blood can easily enjoy the sustainable supply of the glucose within the blood to perform the cellular respiration, which is the key mechanisms for the synthesis of the energy, which is nothing but the higher energy molecules ATP. And the entire process is a feedback process. So whenever we talk about any kind of biological process, irrespective of the nature, there are a number of the coordination, there is a number of regulation, and that beauty is not only in case of human beings, rather this beauty is also applicable to bacteria, to yeast, to different kind of the plants and the human beings. So as far as the definition of the life is concerned, irrespective of the different other platforms, we can say that life is nothing but the millions of the reactions which taken into account within the test tube of or the laboratory of the body, which is the cell, and the regulation of the cell and its every activities is controlled and monitored by the different kind of the regulatory mechanisms in general and different other proteins in particular who basically build up the sustainable supply of the life since the time immemorials. Thus, from the open system to closed system, there is a passage of the life which is being built up since the time immemorial. That is the basic and exact definition of the life, despite the different other views have been contributed by the different philosophers, different poets, different literary beauties, etc., etc. But as far as the magic of the reality of life, we have to say that life is nothing but a journey, and this journey is accomplished by the millions of the molecules taken from the abortic constituents. That means the open systems of this blue planet. At the end, I have to say the very beautiful quotations from Robert Frost. I quote, "The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep." So I think not myself, rather the life have the promises to miles to go, since there will be a bit of life in this beautiful blue planet. So I think you have the pleasure of the cause and consequence of the life. And the next episode will bring another interesting episode which surely become mind blowing to you. Until that, thank you very much for listening and stay with me for a while. Next blog. Thank you. Thank you very much.